3 days after I buried my husband, his phone sent me a text message. Not a notification, not a delayed delivery from before he died. A new message, composed after his death, sent from his number to mine at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. It said, "We need to talk. Not here. Can you meet me Thursday?" I was sitting in the dark in the living room when it came through. I had been doing that, sitting in the dark, because the nights were the worst part, and the dark made the worst part feel slightly more honest than sitting in a lit room pretending everything was the same. I had not slept more than 3 hours at a stretch since the accident. I was wearing his sweater. I looked at the text for a long time. Then I called the number. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. His voice. The recording he had made 2 years ago, casual, a little distracted the way he always was when technology required something of him. "Hey, this is David. Leave me something." I hung up. I sat in the dark until 4 in the morning. Then I went to bed and did not sleep. My name is Ruth. My husband David died 11 days ago in a car accident on Route 9 in upstate New York. He was 44 years old. He was driving back from a work trip, which he took every month, which was so routine that I had not even texted him to say drive safe, the way I sometimes did, because it was Tuesday, and Tuesday was his drive back day, and I had learned not to hover. He did not come home on Tuesday. A state trooper came instead. I want to tell you how I got from that front door to the dark living room with the text from my dead husband's phone. The 11 days between are the heaviest 11 days I have ever lived. I have 2 children, a daughter, Emma, who is 16, and a son, Joel, who is 13. I told them. I watched them understand it and not understand it, and understand it again. I made phone calls I cannot remember making. I chose a casket. I wrote an obituary that said he was survived by a wife and 2 children, and that he was a devoted family man, and that he will be remembered for his laugh. He had a good laugh. That part was true. I buried him on a Saturday. 200 people came. I stood at the front and received condolences for 3 hours, and I remember very little of it, except that my feet hurt, and that Emma held my hand through most of it, and that someone said he was so young, and I said yes, he was. 3 days later, we need to talk. Not here. Thursday, I sat in my car in the parking lot of the coffee shop closest to our house. I did not go inside. I sat in my car and I watched the door, and at 10 minutes after the time the text had specified, a man walked in who I recognized. His name was Kevin Marsh. He and David had worked together for 6 years, same company, different departments, the kind of workplace friendship that lives in lunch and occasional drinks, and had 2 years ago expanded into a dinner at our house where Kevin and his wife had come, and we had eaten pasta and talked about where our kids went to school. Kevin did not come out of the coffee shop. I went in. He was sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees already on the table. When he saw me, his expression did exactly what expressions do when a person has prepared for a conversation, and the conversation is now actually happening, and the preparation turns out to be insufficient. He stood up. He said my name. I sat down. I said, "You sent that text." He said, "I had his phone. He left it in my car 2 weeks before he stopped. He left it in my car. I've been trying to figure out how to..." He stopped again. I said, "Why do you have his phone?" Kevin sat down. He wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. He said, "There are things on it. Things I didn't think you should find out from the phone company, or from his email, or from someone else. I thought you should hear them from a person. I looked at him. He said, David was having an affair. The coffee shop had the particular ambient sound of a coffee shop on a Thursday morning. The machine, the low conversation, someone's laptop. I sat inside all of it and looked at Kevin Marsh and understood that I had known, sitting in the car, that this was what the conversation was going to be. Some part of me had known it from the text itself. We need to talk, not hear. The particular code of things that cannot be said in the ordinary places. I said, How long? He said, I think about 2 years. I'm not certain. I found out 8 months ago by accident, and I talked to him about it, and he said he was going to end it. I don't know if he did. I said, Who? Kevin looked at the table. I said, Kevin, who? He said, Her name is Simone. She works at the Harrisburg office. That's where the monthly trips. He stopped. The monthly work trips. Every third Tuesday. 2 years. Every third Tuesday for 2 years I had not texted him to say drive safe because it was routine. Because I had learned not to hover. I said, The phone. Kevin reached into his jacket pocket and put David's phone on the table between us. I looked at it. It was the same phone I had seen on the kitchen counter 1,000 times. The same case, a small crack in the lower right corner from when he dropped it at the baseball game last spring. I said, Does she know he died? Kevin said, I don't know. I said, Does she know about me? About us? Kevin said, I don't know that either. I'm sorry, Ruth. I'm so sorry. I did not want to be the person who told you this, but I could not let you find out another way. I picked up the phone. I put it in my bag. I stood up. Kevin said, Ruth. I said, Thank you for telling me. Then I walked out. I drove home. I sat in the driveway for a while. The house was empty. Emma was at school. Joel was at school. The ordinary machinery of their lives continuing because it had to. Because children need the ordinary machinery, even when everything has broken. I sat in the driveway and I thought about the Tuesday trips for 2 years, and the small crack in the phone case from the baseball game, and the way he had put his arm around me in the bleachers when Joel's team scored, and said, This is a good day, isn't it? That was 4 months ago. He had been in it for 18 months at that point. Was it a good day? Was it a good day inside whatever he was carrying? I do not know. I will never know. This is the specific cruelty of grieving someone who deceived you. They are not available to be questioned. There is no conversation available. There is only the evidence they left and the silence where the explanation would be. I did not look at the phone that day. I put it on the kitchen counter, the same spot where it had always sat, and I looked at it for a long time. And then I made dinner and waited for the kids to come home. Emma and Joel do not know. I made this decision deliberately, and I have revisited it many times in the months since, and I have not changed it. They are 16 and 13. They just lost their father. The version of their father they lost was the one who coached Joel's baseball team and drove Emma to her Saturday orchestra rehearsals, and sat at the dinner table and asked about their days with what appeared to be genuine interest. That is the father they are grieving. That father existed. He was also simultaneously something else. But the father they are grieving existed. I am not going to add a second loss to the first. Not yet. Maybe not ever. This is a decision I reserve the right to revisit when they are older and when I understand more completely what it would cost them and what it would give them. For now, they are 16 and 13, and they are already carrying more than they should. My sister Carol knows. I told her 3 weeks after the coffee shop, in her kitchen at 2 in the morning, because she found me sitting in her car in her driveway at 1:30 and came outside to get me. I had driven there without calling. I had been driving for an hour before I realized where I was going. She sat with me in her kitchen until 5. She said almost nothing. At one point she said, "What do you need?" And I said I didn't know. And she said, "Okay," and made more tea. This is the purest form of help I have ever received. I looked at the phone for 6 weeks before I unlocked it. I knew the code, his birthday, which was either touching or obvious depending on how you were feeling about him at a given moment. And I unlocked it, and I looked at what was there. I want to tell you what I found, because the finding of it changed what I understood. There were messages between David and Simone going back 22 months. They were what you would expect them to be. The texts of two people in something they both understood was wrong, which is a specific register that is different from the ordinary texts of people in something they believe is right. There was guilt in them, his more than hers, though hers was present too. There were messages where he said, "I need to end this," and messages where the conversation continued anyway, and messages near the end where he said, "I'm going to tell her when I get back." When I get back. He had been driving back. He was coming home to tell me. I sat with that for a long time. I am still sitting with it. He was coming home. He died on the way. He was 44 years old, and he had made a decision, and he was going to walk through the front door and say something I would not have wanted to hear, and the conversation would have been the worst conversation of our marriage, and we would have had to decide what to do with it. We never got to have it. This is its own specific grief, separate from the grief of losing him, and separate from the anger of the deception. The grief of the conversation that did not happen. The one where he would have had to say it in words, and I would have had to respond, and we would have had to be two people working through something devastating in real time. I was robbed of that conversation. He was robbed of the chance to make it right. Both of those things are true. The robbing went in both directions. I did not reach out to Simone. I want to be honest about this decision. I considered it, and I chose not to. And the reason is that I did not have anything to say to her that would serve me or her or anyone. She had been in something she knew was wrong. So had he. The accounting of that is between them, or would have been, if he had lived long enough to have it. The phone is in the drawer of my nightstand now. I don't know why I kept it. I keep the drawer closed. Sometimes I open it and look at the phone and think about the crack in the corner from the baseball game and the way he said, "This is a good day, isn't it?" And the way I said, "Yes." Some days I believe the good day was true alongside everything else. Some days I believe it was the performance of a man who was carrying something he had not yet found the courage to put down. Most days I hold both possibilities and don't try to resolve them, because I have come to understand that the resolution is not available, and the attempt to force it only exhausts me. My therapist is a woman named Dr. Foster. She has an office with plants in it, more plants than I have ever seen in a professional space, a whole wall of them, green and various, and the effect is less clinical than any therapist's office I could have imagined. She said to me once, "You are grieving two things simultaneously, the man and the marriage. They are both real losses, and they are not the same loss." I said, I know. She said, "What are you doing with the anger?" I said, "Mostly ignoring it until it gets loud enough that I can't." She said, "What does it say when it gets loud?" I thought about that. I said, "It says he didn't trust me enough to tell me. That he was in something for 2 years and he couldn't find a way to say it until he was already in the car. That I deserved the conversation before the car." Dr. Foster said, "That's accurate." I said, "That doesn't make it easier." She said, "No, accurate things rarely do." Emma turned 17 last month. I made her the cake she asked for. Lemon, 3 layers, the complicated one. And we had 14 people in the house, and it was loud in the way her birthday parties have always been loud. And she laughed the way she laughs when she is genuinely happy, which is the laugh she got from him. The specific pitch of it, the way it comes out faster than she intends. She does not know she got it from him. She just laughs. Joel made the baseball team this spring. I went to the first game and I sat in the bleachers and I watched him. And I thought about the game last spring and the arm around my shoulders. And this is a good day, isn't it? I thought about what he would have said watching Joel play this year, which would have been something specific and probably something funny, and probably something that made Joel stand up straighter on the field without knowing why. I thought, we could have survived the conversation. If he had come home and said it, and we had had the worst night of our marriage, and then the worst weeks, and then the hard, grinding work of deciding whether to stay, we could have survived it. I believe this. We had been together for 18 years, and the roots were deep, and people survive worse and rebuild. He did not come home. So now I have the grief and the anger and the love and the crack in the phone case and the message that said, "We need to talk, not here." And I have Emma's laugh and Joel on the baseball field and the lemon cake recipe and the drawer that stays mostly closed. I am building what comes next. It does not have a name yet. It does not look like anything I could have planned for. But I am building it in the specific, daily, one foot in front of the other way that you build things when the blueprint was destroyed and you are working from what you remember of it. That is what I have. That is what I am doing. If you are in the middle of something that has no clean shape, no clear villain, no easy resolution, no way to grieve one thing without it being tangled with another, you are not alone. Life does not always give you simple losses. Sometimes the loss is complicated, and the person you lost is complicated. And the love and the anger and the grief are all running at the same time. And all of it is real, and all of it is yours to carry. Carry it the best you can. That is all any of us can do. There is a night I keep returning to. Not the night of the accident. That night is its own sealed room that I enter only when I have to. A different night. A Tuesday night, maybe 8 months before he died. Ordinary in every way except that I remember it with the specific clarity of moments that turn out to matter. He came home late. Not unusual. He sometimes worked late, sometimes had drinks with colleagues, sometimes just sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes before driving home, which he told me once was how he decompressed from certain kinds of days. He came in around 9:30. I was in the kitchen finishing some work. He put his keys on the counter and came over to where I was sitting, and he put his hand on my shoulder, just for a moment, and said, "Long day." I said, "Mine too. There's pasta if you're hungry." He said, "In a bit." He sat down across from me. He poured himself a glass of water. He looked at me in the particular way he sometimes had. Not romantic, not performative, just direct, like he was checking on something. He said, "Are you happy?" I looked up from my work. I said, "Right now? I'm tired. Generally, yes." He said, "Good." I said, "Are you?" He said, "Working on it." I thought he meant work. I went back to my papers. He got the pasta from the fridge and heated it up, and we ate at the kitchen table and talked about something else. Emma's school thing, I think, or Joel's baseball. The ordinary weather of a family's evening. And then we went to bed. Working on it. I have thought about that exchange many times since the coffee shop with Kevin. I have turned it over in all its possible readings. He could have meant work. He could have meant the marriage, some general dissatisfaction he had been living with and had not found the language for. He could have meant her, the thing he was in, the weight of it, the 2 years of getting in deeper and not knowing how to get out. I don't know which he meant. Maybe all three simultaneously. What I know is that he asked if I was happy, and I said yes, and he said good. And then he said he was working on it. And 3 months later, he was telling Kevin he planned to end things. And 8 months later, he was coming home to tell me. He was working on it, whatever it was. He was in the process of trying to correct something he had done wrong. He did not make it home in time. My friend Judith, one of the few people who knows everything, who I told over dinner 6 weeks after the coffee shop when the weight of not telling her had become too much, said something that I have held on to. She said, "The man who was coming home to tell you is also who he was." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "People act like betrayal cancels everything else. Like if he did this one enormous wrong thing, the whole 18 years become false. But that's not how people work." He was the man who coached Joel's baseball team, and he was also the man who was in something he shouldn't have been in. Both of those were him. The fact that he was trying to fix it doesn't erase the wrong, but it also doesn't stop being part of who he was. I said, "I'm having trouble holding both." She said, "I know. You don't have to hold them perfectly. You just have to hold them." I have been holding them imperfectly for months now. There are weeks where the anger dominates, and the man who came home late and said working on it is the man I see. And there are weeks where the grief is the loudest thing, and I miss him in the specific, physical way that happens when someone has been part of your daily life for 18 years, and then is simply not there. The chair, the particular way he poured coffee, the sound of his key in the lock. Both are real. Both are mine. Dr. Foster says grief does not have a schedule. This is the most useful thing anyone has said to me. I had been approaching it like a project, something with phases and milestones and an eventual completion, because that is how I am built. And she sat across from me in the office with the plants and said, "Grief does not have a schedule." And I said, "I know that intellectually." And she said, "Knowing it intellectually and knowing it in your body are different things." I am learning the body version slowly. Emma asked me 2 months ago if her father had been happy. Not in a suspicious way. She did not have any suspicion as far as I could tell. She asked it in the way teenagers ask things that have been sitting with them for a while, casually, looking at something other than my face, the way she does when the question is actually important. I thought about working on it. I said, "I think so. I think he had his struggles, like everyone does, but I think he was happy." She said, "Okay." She looked at me then, briefly. She said, "I just want to know he was okay." I said, he was okay. This was not a complete answer. It was not a lie either. He was okay in the ways she needs to know about at 16, while she is still building her understanding of who her father was. The rest can wait until she is ready for it. Maybe that day will come. Maybe it won't. I am leaving it open. Joel told me last week that he had beaten his dad's record at the batting cage. He said it in the way he says things that matter to him, quickly, without looking at me, like if he says it fast enough, it won't hurt as much. I said, "What was his record?" He said, "He got 42 out of 50 on the hard setting last spring. I got 44. I said, "He would have been furious." Joel laughed. The sound of it, surprised, real, briefly not sad, was the best sound I had heard in weeks. David would have been furious. That is accurate. He would have demanded a rematch, and he would have gotten 38 out of 50 and declared it a statistical anomaly. And Joel would have been insufferable about it for approximately 1 week, and it would have been the specific texture of the two of them together, the arguing and the competing and the underlying current of a father who showed up. He showed up for the 13 years he had. Whatever else he was in alongside that, he showed up. I am keeping that. The drawer in my nightstand stays mostly closed. I open it sometimes. I look at the phone. I put it back. I close the drawer. The crack in the corner is still there. The voice on the voicemail is still his. "Hey, this is David. Leave me something." I have not changed the voicemail. I don't know when I will. Maybe I'll leave him something one day. Not yet. I don't have the words yet for what I would want to say. Something in the territory of, "I know now, and I am still here, and you were worth knowing even though you were also something I did not know." Something like that. I will find the words eventually. For now, the drawer. For now, the plants in Dr. Foster's office and the lemon cake and Emma's laugh and Joel and 44 out of 50. For now, the building of what comes next. That is enough. That has to be enough. Some days it is. A woman from David's office sent me a card 8 weeks after the funeral. One of the ones from Harrisburg. Her name was not Simone. Just a colleague, I think, someone who had worked with him on the monthly trips. She wrote that he had been a good colleague and that he had always been kind and that his death had been a shock to everyone who knew him there. I read the card 3 times. I looked at the Harrisburg return address. I put the card in the drawer. The drawer has a small collection now. The phone, the card, a photograph from our first year together. We look very young, because 26 is young even when it doesn't feel like it. A baseball ticket stub from the game last spring. I don't know what I am keeping these things for. I don't know what the drawer is for exactly, except that it exists, and I keep it mostly closed, and sometimes I open it and look at what's in it, and then I close it again. Carol told me last month that I seem different than I did 6 months ago. She said it carefully, in the way she says things she is not sure I want to hear. I said, "Different how?" She said, "Steadier, like you found the floor." I thought about that. I said, "I think I did. I don't know when." She said, "It doesn't usually announce itself." She is right about that. The steadiness came without announcement, sometime in the weeks of ordinary living. Dinner with the kids, work that needed to be done, Emma's orchestra and Joel's baseball, and the usual machinery of a family's life continuing because it has to. I looked up one day, and I was standing on the floor that had felt missing for months. It is not the floor I had before. That floor is gone. This one is different. Smaller in some ways, sturdier in others, built on different foundations, but it holds. David would have liked that I found the floor. Whatever else he was, whatever the drawer contains, he would have wanted me to find the floor. I believe this not because it makes things easier, but because I knew him for 18 years and I know what he would have wanted. And wanting his family to be okay was one of the truest things about him. He was complicated. He loved us. Both of those things were true all the way to the end. I am building what comes next on the floor I found. One day at a time, the way everyone builds things when the blueprint is gone. Emma will turn 18 next year. Joel will make the varsity team, I think. He has the work ethic for it, and the arm is developing. I will go to the games and sit in the bleachers, and I will think of all of it at once. The good day, and the crack in the phone, and the text at 11:47, and the man who was coming home. I will hold all of it, imperfectly, on the floor I found. That is the whole story. It does not have a resolution that fits inside a sentence. It has a person still living it, still deciding what to do with a drawer, still finding the words she will leave when she is ready. If you are living something that does not resolve cleanly, something where the love and the loss and the anger are all true at the same time, I see you. I am in it with you. The floor is there even when it doesn't feel like it. Keep going. Subscribe, because every story on this channel is real, it is raw, and it is worth your time. Drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from? And if you are carrying something complicated, something with no clean ending, I want to hear from you. I read every single one.